Welcome into Extra Time. Thank you as always for your tweets. Shaka with me along with Craig. Craig, what was the general feeling towards England-born players playing for Scotland during your time? Were they under constant scrutiny to prove their nationalism?
No, and there was a few. Matt Elliott was one. Neil Sullivan was another. Stuart McCall, actually, in the early days, Stuart was, I think, brought up in England, played for Rangers at the time, but had a strong sort of Yorkshire accent. But nobody was more tenacious on the field than Stuart McCall, and gave as much as Stuart McCall. Don Hutchinson had, I think, Scott Gemmell, brought up in England because his dad Archie played at Nottingham Forest amongst other clubs. So it's just a ridiculous notion. None of the lads or coaching staff batted an eyelid about where people were born. As I say, me and the wife are Scottish, but our kids were born all over, so it happens.
Who do you think they would play for, Craig, your kids, if they played at a national level, Scotland or England?
Well, I think, having asked my oldest where he would consider himself from, he said England, and I would imagine. Right. I would imagine most of them would say, if they had a choice, they would say they feel they're English. That's just the way they found. Who am I to argue?
Shaka, did you play for England like under 19s or something? Very young?
As an overage player for the under 23s, and I played with England B as well.
But it was never a doubt that Trinidad and Tobago obviously was going to be your choice.
No, never a doubt. Once I got that call, the decision was made. As a matter of fact, Kevin Keegan tried to name me in the squad in '99 for the Euro qualifiers, but I'd made my mind up that I was committing to Trinidad, so turned him down.
Oh, I wish you'd played in goal. We might have won that Euro 2000 qualifier. The double header up. Bloody hell. If you'd only played in goal instead of David Seaman. Oh, boy.
Shaka, who's the best goalkeeper of the past decade? Buffon, Neuer, De Gea or Casillas?
I'm going to say Gigi Buffon. I'm a huge fan. He will top my list every single time. But for me, arguably the best two goalkeepers we've seen for some time is Gigi Buffon and Iker Casillas. I think everybody else pales in comparison to those two.
Craig, according to your Wikipedia page, during your stint with Celtic, you scored 20 goals in just over 60 appearances. Very different than your Chelsea days. What made the difference?
Well, that's actually wrong. Right. Because it wasn't.
It's not like Wikipedia.
It wasn't 60 appearances and it wasn't 20 goals. I scored 15 goals in my first season, I believe, and I was 9 in my second, and I can't remember the third because it was only halfway through. So both of those figures are wrong, unsurprisingly. But one of the differences was that I, and I know, I think the insinuation here is, was it Scottish football the difference? Well, that might be partly the case, but I think a big part of it for me was, one, playing in my natural position regularly, which was the middle of the park, where I kind of was ushered around a little bit at Chelsea and played on the right quite a bit. And secondly, was finding a team that suited the way that I played, and having Paul Lambert next to me in the middle of the park. We'd come back from Dortmund that season, and he was the holding midfielder, allowed me to go and get forward. And as I say, the first season when we won the title, I got 15. So I think that was a big difference, that I got a bit of confidence, and I was playing in a very good side, and I was playing with some very good players. And I think for me, that was the big difference.
Shaka, who was the most dedicated teammate to getting better that you ever had?
To getting better? Well, you can interpret this in a couple of ways. Alan Shearer, who I've seen kind of work his way back from countless horrific injuries. I don't think I've seen anybody work as hard on the road to recovery. I'm not sure. I'll say Alan Shearer worked hard at getting better. He was a complete striker when he arrived at Newcastle, but he worked harder at his craft than anybody had seen. I'm going to take it from the tone of the question is more thinking about young players trying to improve. I'm not sure. Dwight Stearns-John spent countless hours on the training ground. I don't think I'd look any further than those two, in all honesty.
Craig?
Well, some of the Italian boys stick out, like Gianluca Vialli and Gianfranco Zola. But the one that there's two players stick out the most for me. One of them's a big daft goalkeeper, was Mark Poom. Mark Poom, the Estonian international at Derby. I've never seen anybody work as hard I've never seen a goalkeeper work like Mark Poom. He was incessant on the training ground. He was never out the gym, to a point where the coaching staff used to tell him to get out the gym and go home. And when we used to do the bleep tests, which were a measurement of fitness, he used to beat all the outfield players. He was incredible. But the guy that was dedicated as well was Ravanelli. Ravanelli took his profession so seriously and was such a great professional, it was scary. And all those people, all those moronic idiots, and I include some of the pundits in that used to suggest that Ravanelli was only here for the money, have no idea what they're talking about. Because one, he was a great goal scorer, and two, the guy never had a day off. Fantastic professional.
Shaka, who are you having? Van Nistelrooy or Van Persie?
I'm going to go Van Persie. I just think maybe because he's more complete. I don't think the Premier League has seen a better in the box finisher than Van Nistelrooy, but certainly Van Persie outside of the box maybe gave you a little bit more than Van Nistelrooy.
Craig?
I think a fully fit and it's a close one, but a fully fit and functional Van Nistelrooy for me would just edge it. And I think that's why even after he did his cruciate, just before he signed for Man United, and ultimately Sir Alex Ferguson vetoed it for another year, he still was so keen to get the player that he went back after him. I think that tells you a story.
Why doesn't Craig have any emotional connection to his former club Chelsea like Stevie and Frank do with Liverpool and Chelsea?
Because I do. I've got the memories and I've got friends from my time there, and I had good and bad times at all the clubs. But ultimately, and I think a lot of people struggle with this perception, is that we have a job to do. And that job is not to cozy up, and I'm not saying those two boys do, but that, for me, and I can only talk about me, my job's not to cozy up to former clubs, and you well know that. And I've never ever in my career broadcasting hid the fact that that's the way I'm going to do it. So I have friends and still speak to people involved around those clubs, but for me, they get the same analysis and praise and criticism as every other club, and that's the way I'm always going to do it. It's black and white. I'm not a player anymore. I don't owe them anything. They don't owe me anything. It's quite simple, really.
It includes family as well, doesn't it? You take a look at some of your comments in the past. It isn't just clubs that you don't have loyalty to, it's family as well.
In what sense? Explain that one to me.
Well, you were more than you weren't holding back for criticism of George Burley, for example, when he was coach of Scotland. You treated him just like any other manager.
Yeah, I think Shaq thought you were talking about the missus and 3 kids there and the dog. Do you remember?
No,
Shaq.
I didn't say a word.
Well, listen, George Burley, and listen, George being my dad's brother and my uncle, George knew the score when he took the international job for Scotland, and I knew the score. And as I say, there are so many pathetic people out there acting as pundits that you want to try doing it with your uncle's a Scotland manager and he's having a tough time. Actually, I didn't find it problematic, and he didn't have an issue with it, to my knowledge. He understood I had a job to do, and my job was to analyse Scotland and his team selections and his team's performances, and they were abject at best, and that's why one of the reasons he got the sack. So it really wasn't an issue for me, and I don't believe it was an issue for him. That's the least of his problems. A bit of criticism from me when you saw the way the team were performing on the field. Look, you got to do that. You're either all in to do this job or you're not. There's too many wishy-washy people out there that want to come take the dollar and take the buck and do a half-assed job. You're either in it or you're not.
Last questions for Shaka. Are you looking forward to going back to the studio, or are you looking forward more to your next vacation?
Let me tell you something. I have not missed the 2-hour drive into the studio as much as I have in the last 6 weeks. I need a vacation from staying home.
Are all 5 kids at home, Shaq?
I've got 4. Well, 4 here today. So my eldest has her own place back in central Boston, and she kind of goes back and forth to. My second daughter is back down in North Carolina, where she was finishing up. She just graduated. She just finished all her coursework to graduate. And the youngest 3 have been here throughout. So yeah, it's been a full out.
Thank you very much to the gentlemen. Thank you, Shaka. Thank you, Craig. We'll be back tomorrow for more of this. Until then, goodbye. Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.